All right, going to call the June 18th meeting of the Development Review Board into session, and it is 6:40. So at the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. Application materials and written testimony is posted to the website as received. Hearings may be continued at the board's discretion if materially important documents are received after the submission deadline. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearings, the regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decisions of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board, so I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this meeting. We are on the record. We are going to ask that you affirm that your testimony will be truthful, so the applicants and anyone wishing to speak to an application, please affirm the following. I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains of and penalties of perjury. Say I do.
I do.
Okay, thank you. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That is 4 votes out of 7. We do not have a full board here tonight, so you may you may request to continue your application to the next public meeting. You wish to do so, or you want to go tonight?
I want to make sure that we're clear, that we understand. So we would like to present, and then after our presentation and Q&A, we'd like to query the board as to whether they have concerns. And at that point, could we ask for a continuance?
You could.
Okay, we'd like to proceed then, thank you.
Okay. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on the application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by town planning department, town attorney, and any other town departments will be considered in the exact same way as information from the applicant and all other interested parties. So Keith, since we're sure, I'd like to appoint you to sit to hear this application.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's see. Brian, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Okay. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications that they'd like to know? Okay. And you're on.
Great.
So let's hear the matter of 2025-33.
Thank you. I'm Corey Frazee with Stonebolt Consulting here on behalf of the school district, and this is Mary Kaufman. She's the principal of Canal Street School and Oak Grove School. Robert Clark wasn't able to join us. He was here last month, but had a family matter to attend to. So you're going to hear a lot of what you heard last month, since this is our formal meeting and we're on the record. To start, we're here for site plan review, including a request to merge the lots, which clears up a lot of the questions that were associated with the original application and with last month's discussion. And there are no waivers being requested tonight, and I'll take you through the changes to the site plan which led to that. And I'll talk more about the changes from the original application materials. We resubmitted some materials, including the plans, but we did not resubmit some of the forms, so I want to make sure that you understand what's changed on those forms, such as there are 9 additional parking spaces now being proposed for a total of 16 instead of 18. So I'll get into that a little more. First, I'd give Mary the opportunity to talk about the need for this parking and what's going on at Canal Street School.
Hi everyone, thanks again for having us. I am here to share with you the vision for Canal Street School, which, as you may know, is a historic building here in Brattleboro. Predates automobiles, which is an important fact to consider in this evening's testimony, right? Testimony. Plan? Presentation. The oath gets me every time. So we are expanding our pre-K offerings here in the town of Brattleboro. Currently, Oak Grove School is the only public school that serves public pre-K for 4-year-olds. This year, we were able to expand that to Canal Street schools. We have 1 classroom at Canal Street and 1 classroom at Oak Grove. Next school year, we'll be combining all of our pre-K classrooms, so those 2 down in the Canal Street School building, and really offering a robust program for 4-year-old students and pre-K students. Previously, this building was used by EES, or our Head Start, and then it sat vacant for a little while. It is also shared with our early childhood special education team. So students who are not school-aged yet, but do receive special education support come into the building. There's a lot of special educators who are working with kids in the building. We're doing some play groups. Kids are pushing into the classroom that is currently down there. So throughout the day, families are bringing kids in, teachers are coming in and going out, and the parking is really not adequate for the amount of people that are currently using that building, and hence why we're asking for more parking. There are a total of 6 classrooms, and right now we are next year planning to use 3 of them. Pre-K is a little bit different in terms of the amount of staff that are needed. So in a regular classroom, we may have 2 staff, a classroom teacher and a support staff member. In pre-K, we often work with 3 to a classroom just because of the needs of the children, and for ratio purposes, we operate under different regulations. So that automatically increases the number of people that we would have to have in that building compared to like a K-6 school. And the location of the building is, well, there is some parking available. I don't know if you know teachers, but they all come with things. And moving from like street parking or parking farther away can be really challenging when you've got a whole bunch of stuff. Not to mention dropping off young kids. We want to make sure that's as easy as possible, which would be much easier in this case where we have a designated drop-off space, which would be in this parking lot. That would be at the bottom of the school, the hill to the school entrance. I think that's all I need to say about pre-K.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have, well, we'll do questions later, right? Okay. So the highlights, we talked with the school, and I think they're looking for 20 spaces right now. And this gets us to 16. So as Mary alluded to, it's a big help. And we are in discussion with the town about trying to secure some on-street parking, because even with this project, we're not going to have the needs met for the longer term. I'd like to share my screen, Stephen, and I can do that, right?
I could also note that currently staff are parking behind the building, which is actually the fire lane. If there were an emergency, the fire department it would be challenging for both the fire department and those cars to use that space and to adequately address the fires.
Thank you. So I can zoom in as needed, and most of these slides you also saw last month. But again, being on the record, I want to take you through a few talking points. So this is an overhead photo, an aerial photo of Canal Street School, and Canal Street is on, you're not seeing my hand, are you? Oh, there we go, okay. Canal Street School, Canal Street is there, and then we come around the corner, and that's Clark Street. And the new parking is proposed on this lower lot, which again is going to be merged with the school lot. And the stormwater that I'm going to talk about that's proposed is off of this corner of the building right here. This plan is largely unchanged, although there was a good piece of feedback at the last month's meeting to add an overall site plan. So hopefully you saw that, and that helped get you oriented. Up in the top of the page here, and it's cut off a little bit by my picture, but if we need to zoom in on that, we can. This is the existing conditions plan, so I'll just keep going. That was in your packet. And then I want to talk about some changes to the actual parking. So this is the proposed parking, and try and zoom in to give you a better view. So my mouse is up on Canal Street, and then we turn on to Clark Street. And as I'm sure you're familiar with, if you're coming off of Canal onto Clark, you immediately turn up the existing driveway. So my mouse is going up that existing driveway to the school, and the school is not shown on this plan, but the school is up in this area. And so, similar to the design that you saw during sketch plan, you start up the driveway and you turn left into the proposed parking. The change is that it is not angled parking. It is a full 20-foot drive width instead of the reduced 16 feet for angled parking, which I had asked for a waiver incorrectly to 13 feet. So we've got the full 20-foot width. We've got all 9 by 18-foot parking spaces. And as I said, this has 9 parking spaces. Your original application materials reflected 11 spaces. This has 9 for a total of 16 instead of 18. Let's see, there is, and the exit back onto Clark, that does remain. That is relocated about 20 feet, I guess, farther away from the property line is the way I would describe it. So it was right at the edge of the property before, and it's been moved back about 20 feet. There is one angled space that I want to bring to your attention. It's right here. That angled space is, I would say, because we got completely out of the setbacks. So the zoning application talks about, or the zoning bylaw talks about angled spaces if there's site constraints, and I would submit that there are site constraints on this lot. We're also not asking for a setback waiver at this point, which necessitated the one angled space, along with the steep slopes. The steep slopes are a site constraint on this lot as well. Make sure I cover other changes. I'll talk a little bit about buffers and screening. And I've spoken with the neighbor who's here tonight. So we have shrubs proposed along the common property line and along Clark Street. And the layout of the shrubs changed because the exit drive changed. So now you'll see shrubs on both sides of the exit drive rather than they were, kind of all in one run. But they do run the entire length of the property line. We do feel like it is fully screened. Couldn't put shrubs in the exit drive, so they're everywhere else they could be, along with 3 proposed trees and an existing maple tree that's on the common property line. And there is also a fence along the common property line. And when we spoke with the neighbor, we talked about possibly replacing the fence. We talked about putting some shrubs on the other side of the fence. And it was our understanding that we'd keep the fence and keep all the shrubs on the school side of the fence. So that is something we can come back to and talk further about if there's a change that's needed there. Before I leave this site plan, I just want to talk quickly about how we really think that traffic circulation and safety will be improved. As Mary alluded to, and I've talked to the school facilities, with a series of cones and having a staff person at this area, they're gonna work to have parents utilize this parking lot to queue up cars, let the kids out, and have the kids walk up from here. So they don't plan to let vehicles drive up to the school unless it's a handicapped person or some other unique situation. And the cars will cycle through this parking lot. It gets the drop off of the street, and it gets the congestion away from the Canal Clark intersection. We also believe that because cars will be pulling out onto Clark Street another 50 feet down the road, that they're less likely to go the wrong way down Clark Street and make an illegal left turn, which we know is an issue with the existing school drive. Also, just to reiterate what Mary said, the fire department seems to be happy that we will be eliminating many of the spaces up around the school, because with cars parked up there, I don't know how a fire truck or an ambulance would ever get up there. So this will improve emergency access. It will also improve the handicap parking space. So I've hand my plan over to the stormwater, and just to quickly talk about the stormwater. The stormwater is proposed in the area where the existing handicap space is. We're gonna relocate the handicap space closer to where the lift is. This is a lift access to get mobility impaired people into the school. So this is actually an improvement because the space will now be directly next to that lift. We will remove about 1,200 feet of asphalt, 1,200 square feet of asphalt, and this infiltration basin that's proposed is a state stormwater infiltration basin. It's designed to state standards, and it will treat about 4,000 square feet of the remaining asphalt, which is actually more than the parking lot that is proposed down below. So we're doing a little more stormwater treatment than if we were treating the parking lot below. Other items from last meeting, I did talk to the landscape architect about shrubs. There were some pros and cons. We decided to stay with the shrubs that were originally proposed for 2 reasons. Maintenance is the number one. These are low maintenance shrubs. The reality of the school doing a lot of maintenance on the shrubs is challenging, and so we felt like that was important. With regards to changing to a conifer species, like an arborvitae, he had a good point that sometimes not having any vision into a parking lot can actually be uncomfortable for a pedestrian passerby. So these shrubs will not create a completely opaque wall. And from the comfort level of someone walking down the street, he thought that these shrubs were more appropriate. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to share that. And we added 3 street signs. So there are not, I would call them like parking signs. We added 3 signs that are proposed on the site plan to help with circulation through the parking lot. So those are the 12 by 18 single signpost parking signs that we will work with the school district on exactly what the language is, but that's to help direct people and get them to the right spot for drop off.
How big are they?
They're 12 inches by 18 inches. So they're your standard, I'm gonna say no parking sign, but that's not what it's gonna say. I'm getting close to the end of my presentation. I wanted to clarify a couple things in the memo received from the staff. I wanted to clarify that I feel that the parking lot is screened. And the parking is no longer within the minimum setback. The memo seems to indicate that there's parking spots within the minimum setback, and that's, all the parking spaces are now out of the 10-foot front yard setback.
That's your understanding as well.
Yeah, that must have.
And as I said, I think that the angled space is necessitated by site-specific conditions. And we are not currently requesting a waiver. If we wanted to talk about changing that, this meeting was noticed for a waiver because we revised the plans in the meantime. If we got a setback waiver, we could get rid of the angled space, but I don't think that's appropriate. I think the angled space will work fine. It creates some areas for snow storage on either side, incidentally, and it gets us farther away from the neighbor's property line. The last thing is that we did go to the DRC, the Design Review Committee, last week. They reviewed the project. Interesting because it's not a structure, but it's in the historic district, so we needed to meet with the DRC, and they approved our project. There were 3 members there who all voted in favor of the project. So in closing, I just want to go back to with these lots merged, this parking is accessory to the school. So I don't think of this as a separate project, and I would encourage you to think of this as an elementary school project that needs parking. And it's really about the kids. And the safety of these children is going to be drastically improved, and the revitalization of this historic building is going to be enabled by having adequate parking there.
So we have questions? Anybody? I have a couple. Anybody else?
I'll go first with one.
Okay. See if we have the same.
Yeah, so consistent in your narration of this meeting, like last meeting, you said that this will very likely improve the traffic at the intersections of Clark and Canal, and drivers won't be tempted to exit the property and take a left. But because flow through the parking lot will be one way, but on the site plan, there's arrows in both directions.
Yes. So in accordance with the town regs, this has a full 20-foot drive aisle.
Mm-hmm.
And so cars could go either way. This is not something that, the school is intending to have this be a flow of one way.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose if that was important enough to this committee or this board, I think it would still work if you condition our approval on this being one way. So
I just remember this last meeting, we were saying, hey, two curb cuts is okay
But
for this sort of reason, that will improve traffic.
Right,
But then
right.
now if it's
it's
allowing traffic to exit at the main driveway.
Yeah, so I just wanted to be clear about that. Before we were looking at like a one entrance and then a one exit,
that's right.
in 2 different curb cuts, but now you just have the 1 curb cut, that's right? Or is there 2?
There wasn't 2 curb cuts last month, or maybe the better way to say that is there are the same amount of curb cuts this month at this meeting.
The merged property
Yes,
will have 2 curb cuts.
okay.
The existing one and
The
then
existing one,
the parking
yes,
lot.
I'm
So
sorry.
the existing one that's on the far right side is still there, and they can
Yes.
pull
Yeah.
in from kind of the driveway into the parking lot, is that right?
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Okay.
I think I have a picture of it.
No, I didn't see that on here. Okay.
So the intent is to have it one way.
Mhm.
I guess I showed the arrows because that's consistent with the town zoning bylaw.
And so this new curb, the bigger curb cut can go in and out, or is it just one way?
The bigger curb cut is wide enough to accommodate cars going both ways. Again, I can't ask for a waiver on a dimensional requirement such as the exit. So I made it 18 feet because that's the minimum commercial curb cut.
Right.
And there's no avenue for that to be narrower that I'm aware of, because that's not something that can be requested as a waiver.
All right, I'm just thinking about what people who are driving will do,
Mm-hmm.
and if that's what you want them to do.
Well, I don't know if you have thoughts on this.
Mhm.
You do?
Yes, I do. I think I'm understanding. So the intention is, as a school, we would ensure that traffic went up the driveway, into the parking lot, out, and then take a right onto Clark Street.
Right.
And I think it sounds like the rule is that it has to be this specific number of feet wide, because that's how we have to cut them. But as a school, we can make the actual rules about how they go.
As an
Right.
example, one of the parking signs,
Yes.
you could have a one-way parking sign on it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we would, we also have a staff member who could be out there directing traffic for the first few weeks of school so that that flow continues the way that we would hope it would continue. As we do now, it just is in the driveway
Okay.
of the school.
So when you see buses, small buses and whatnot coming in through here, as well as cars?
We probably would not have a small bus, it would be a regular sized bus. I
Regular
don't
sized
know if
bus.
a regular sized bus would fit through this area. I don't know if a regular sized bus would fit down Clark Street.
That's what I thought.
It's actually, it's worth you saying again what you said last month about the bus company and how they handle the busing. Because the bus stop is in Canal, right?
The bus stop
Maybe-
is on Canal Street, it's at the corner of Canal and Clark. And so, I don't remember exactly what I said, but that's where the bus
Right.
stop is, and
Yeah.
that's where the bus stop would have to remain, because they are not gonna navigate a bus through those back streets.
Okay,
Because they're all one way
yeah.
and, very narrow,
right.
and it just would not be safe. So kids would be dropped off at that bus stop, which is at Clark and Canal. There is a wonderful crossing guard there. And then a staff member has a responsibility of walking the students up the driveway to the school.
So there was a chain link fence on the Canal Street side before, right?
There is currently,
Is that staying or going?
That's going.
Yeah.
It was around the entire perimeter of this space. and
Okay.
it is-
And then you have another fence, a different fence along the property line on the other side, right?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
thank you for clarifying.
And that's
There's a-
staying, but the chain link is going.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, in this picture that's coming up right now, and I'm sorry, I forget your name, but
Kathy is fine.
Kathy?
Yeah.
Okay, so at some point, I'd like to hear from Kathy, because the fence, which is not coming up on your screen, is a stockade fence, so it's, it's a opaque fence, it averages about 5.5 feet high,
Right.
and is what would be required in this situation if it didn't already exist. So, I talked with Kathy about replacing it or keeping it.
Okay.
There it is.
And then
30
on the
second delay.
existing plan, it looks like there's a small gate on the, and that's going. That's
On the
not going to
driveway
be
side.
retained.
Yes,
correct.
that's part of the chain link fence, and that will go away.
Okay.
Maybe here, let's see it. Should I stop sharing my screen? Does it bother people?
Then you can leave it.
Okay. I guess there's nobody else on Zoom, is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm not impeding on anybody.
Okay, and talk to us about how you see snow removal happening in this lot.
Okay, so.
Where are you gonna put it? Between the angles?
Yeah, and do they call it hauling it off? So it currently gets loaded into dump trucks up around the school. And from talking to the contractor who does that, I understand that he plans that will be needed on this parking lot as well. There is a small amount of storage. If they push through the lot, they can push to an area between the existing drive and Canal Street, but it's not a lot of room. There will now also be some room in the setbacks, so depending on how big the storm is, with the 10-foot setback and the shrubs, there's some room between the edge of parking and the shrubs.
Regarding the setbacks, now that they'll be larger, or the regs minimum, is there going to be any provision to make them lower than the driveway, than the pavement, so that way that any stormwater drains into those setbacks?
The stormwater will drain through the front setback.
Okay.
It'll be sheet flow across the parking lot and then go across this 10-foot of grass before it gets to the sidewalk. We talked last month about having a low spot, a swale, and that's not feasible because the parking area is above the sidewalk and it's not wide enough to actually create a depression and then come back up.
Oh.
I mean, anything's possible, but it's just not,
Okay.
it's not feasible, you know. It wouldn't create enough width to meet the stormwater designs to be productive and do adequate stormwater treatment.
But for example, the front setback won't be mounded, or it won't have curbs that block the sheet flow, like you said?
Yep. And so, while I don't think it meets, I think a standard vegetative buffer is 15 feet. So if you have 15 feet of grass, you get some credit for treating stormwater if it flows off of a parking lot like this. This is 10. But you will get some benefit from that.
Any other questions from the board? No?
Just a question, not necessarily a requirement or anything that I'm proposing, but are the boundaries surveyed and marked?
There was a surveyor hired, and my information is based on his preliminary take. He has had some trouble kind of getting to the point where he can stamp and the boundaries are official. So I don't know, I can't give you a clear answer. I have read the description and it talks about pins, but I haven't been able to talk to him to find out if he was able to find the pins or exactly what his trouble was.
Okay. Just curious. I mean, it's my understanding that we're not a board that decides those things. It's up to the owner and applicant and the potential neighbors to litigate or figure out what the actual legal property marks are. But Brian?
Yeah, so the deed does have really clear boundary descriptions. It doesn't refer to a survey, but given how exacting it is, it seems like there must have been an unreported survey at some point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. 14 feet, 106 feet, 40-something feet. Yep.
It's just very crisp.
Sorry.
Another thing I'll say, and it's nothing that I'm proposing, but did you see a letter/email submitted by a neighbor? Anyway, it was shared with the board. I would just ask that it be forwarded to the applicant.
Yeah,
there's from the Birdos.
Yes.
Because I don't, I think if what they're asking or hoping for, I would say like if this was an actual town-owned park, then I think their request for like a plaque to commemorate the history and the and the efforts that were put into the park, and like maybe a basketball hoop for use outside of parking hours. But it's private property, and you guys, I feel, aren't, or I think, I'm pretty sure, aren't bound in any way to besides complying with the regs and laws and stuff, you're not bound to the community's desires and will.
That'd be great to see, because we've had some discussions internally acknowledging that, this was kind of a community park that came together. So, can you guys forward that?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think this is an idea I have for the planning commission maybe, but it seems to me, I mean, as far as the aisle in a parking lot being 20 feet minimum, unless it's angled parking, then it can be 16 minimum. I feel like that thought was probably thinking that there may be parking on both sides of the aisle. But in a situation where there's parking on just one side of the aisle, maybe it doesn't necessitate the whole 20 feet. The current regs as they are don't give any latitude to
You're right.
to us saying like, oh, hey, extenuating circumstances can decrease that. But if there was, this seems to me like something that in the future we might want to consider.
Yeah,
Giving
I
an
mean,
exception.
given that the planning commission has wanted to minimize the impacts of parking on
Yeah,
land development, make a more space efficient design as possible.
but especially if it comes with a condition that the aisle be one way only, then I feel like we should bring down the 20 feet to whatever be okay. Yeah, right. So it's a good thing I'm on this too. It gives me ideas.
Okay, any other questions from the board? And did you want to ask a question?
Yes,
Just stand up to the microphone and give us your name.
I'm Kathleen Looney. I'm wondering, now the drop-off and pickup is strictly a school bus.
It's not a school bus, not just a school bus.
So
Families do drop
families-
off.
Okay, so one concern I have about that is cars idling in the parking lot for my environment. Would that be something that I'd be looking forward to as they're dropping off and picking up? Or would
Yeah, that is
they?
a great point. We, in many of our other school drop-off zones, we do have no idling parking, signs, to cut down on that. And I think we could definitely do that. We can also set up some expectations around what that drop-off looks like with families. Yeah, it's a great point.
And the fencing now, that parking fence is gonna be eliminated, the chain link?
Yeah,
fence?
the chain link,
Chain link fence?
yes.
Okay, so there's not gonna be any fencing anymore around it at all? Okay.
No.
And that grass around the exterior, will that be gone too? And the
Well,
reason I'm asking
yeah.
about that is because a lot of people are not good with their dogs.
Mhm.
So you might be happier eliminating it.
Yeah, so
With children in the area.
Kathy, I don't know if you can see this picture, but if you squint, the area between the sidewalk and the chain link fence, that's generally gonna stay.
Okay,
There's gonna be about 10 feet of grass and shrubs that will
Okay.
stay, so
so,
enough room for most dogs.
it's too bad.
That's only about 5 feet right now, so actually there's gonna be more space than there currently is to the chain link fence. I don't know if you're talking about them taking their animals into
No,
the
right,
playground, just
Well,
right along the
some
edge.
people do, but
Okay.
right along the edge,
Yeah,
yeah, they
yeah.
really.
They can pick up after.
Mhm.
We can get those little obnoxious signs that tell you to pick up after you.
It sounds like it's an important part of the neighborhood.
Well, yeah,
Um,
not a lot of space for the dogs to go. And have to
And,
pick up.
Yeah, they should.
and then as far as the fence, the chain link is proposed to go away.
Okay.
It wouldn't make sense from a traffic circulation standpoint. But that stockade fence that we've talked about, we want to make 100% sure that you're comfortable with that fence staying and,
Oh, my fence, yeah.
okay.
As long, it's not gonna obstruct your ability to do the work.
No, no, no,
Okay.
not at all. Nope, it's just that if it wasn't there, we'd be putting one up. So if you're happy with your fence, that's great. It saves the school a little bit of money, I suppose. But we want you to be happy as well.
That's fine.
Okay,
Nora, I have one more
okay.
thought to bring up. Could you return to the site plan, the proposed site?
I will try. We'll see how fast the computer follows.
Can you zoom in to?
Yeah. On the parking or on the stormwater?
Yeah, right where the hand is.
Okay.
Did you think about trying to squeeze in another space here? And does the driveway to the school have any excess width to play with?
Yes, I have thought about squeezing spaces in
Yeah,
everywhere.
sure.
And No, the existing drive to this, up to the school is really close to that minimum width of 20 feet.
Okay.
I think it's 21 feet where I measured it.
Mhm.
So we would like to talk about one way and putting parallel parking in, but
You also have
given the-
people walking, you know, you got a lot of walkers going up
Right.
that hill,
yeah,
right?
yeah, so I definitely appreciate you thinking outside the box with me. And to follow your comments about the planning commission, I think I'll be providing some feedback on the dimensional requirements and maybe some more flexibility around that, because I've learned something through this process.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I'll speak for myself on the planning commission. That's what we love to see, people interacting with the regs and then giving feedback.
Okay. Do you want us to move forward on a vote?
Well, I guess this is my opportunity to try not to be too awkward, but at the same time ask you if you feel like you have concerns that still remain unaddressed and warrant us continuing this, because we would like your affirmative vote. So can I query the board, please?
We straw poll.
Yeah, and it's
Straw poll.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine, I would just like the one-way
Do the condition.
added as a condition,
Okay,
which you said is your intent.
all right.
Formalize it.
Signage for the one-way?
Mhm.
Yes.
So the
Okay.
parking lot shall be signed for one-way.
Okay, so that's the condition? All right, can I have a motion, please?
Move to accept the proposal and the condition.
Okay. and
I'll second.
All right. Tom?
I'm in favor.
Favor? I'm in favor?
I'm in favor.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
project's
Thank
approved.
I missed who moved in second.
Keith and I. Or minutes, the minutes of last meeting.
Oh, yeah. All right, I forgot to, you guys are finished. And I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, and I have one more thing to say, so it doesn't have to do with you guys. So as you know, this is the end of our fiscal year, and we have new members coming on the board and old members leaving. And so I want to welcome Keith as a permanent member
Thank you.
of the board, and Michael Averill will be leaving. And I want to just, right now, take the opportunity to thank Michael for his years of service on the board. I think his experience and humor have been invaluable, and I'm really gonna miss him. So, thank you, Michael.
Definitely.
Administrative question. In your intro.
Yeah, did I miss something?
No,
else?
you didn't. No, sorry. You didn't. It's a question about the wording. It says something that there's a submission deadline for materials.
Right.
Is
Which
that,
we've gone back and forth.
is that an old artifact of
You know,
past practice?
there is, I think, technically a submission deadline, which regularly gets broken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we've talked about it a lot.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just clear.
I brought it up with them. You know, if it's really like a big one, I get kind of vocal about it. It works for a while.
Yeah.
Thank you, folks.
We instituted that on the planning commission.
Thank you.
Good night.
See ya.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Um,